Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Joe Hernshaw, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, joined with Councillor Shanika Mahendran as well. Please note that this meeting will be recorded for broadcast on the internet after the meeting has taken place and can be viewed online at the Council's YouTube website. Generally, the public gallery is not filmed, but by entering the meeting room and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed. It's a bit echoey. This evening, there are two decisions to be taken, one by Councillor Mahendran, Cabinet Member for Planning and Placemaking, and I'll be taking one decision as well. In addition to myself and any other councillors who have decided to join the meeting, a number of senior officers, together with legal, service-based and democratic service colleagues, are also in attendance, either online or at Civic. And please ask everyone who is online or has just joined us online to switch off their microphone and camera when not speaking, please. And for those in the room, please ensure you turn your microphone on when speaking. A supply of the papers for this meeting is available on the modern.gov pages of the Council's website. I received notification that 3 members of the public have registered to speak on item 2, which is a sustainability strategy. I've not been advised in advance that any councillors have registered to speak on any of the items, but for any councillors who have joined the meeting, please let me know if you wish to speak at the relevant time. Can I remind councillors and members of the public that any contribution should not exceed 3 minutes and are for speaking about the merits of the decision, not to serve as a formal question and answer session. The decision sheet will be published on the modern.gov pages of the Council's website tomorrow, Wednesday the 11th of Feb 2026. I will now take my first item once I catch my breath a little bit. My first item is on school admissions arrangements for 2027. This is something that we do every year with the schools, a partnership with our fantastic team. Effectively, given that we do this every year, we ran a consultation just back in November, December. There have been pupil admission number reductions across Gifford Park School, I believe, Howie Park School, Longmeadow, Falconhurst, but that's in line with sort of declining birth rates anyway. And it's also just we do this as well to make sure that there's a fair access to every school that are within our maintained voluntary control as well. I don't really think there's loads more to add to that. I don't think, Dominic, unless there's anything else you want to add.
Just also the expansion of Oldbrook School's catchment to include an area that it's currently industrial. But other than that, no, thank you, Councillor Hanshaw. That's it.
And Dominic, and again, thank you to the team and thank you to all the schools from the Schools Forum as well. Are there any questions? In that case, I'm very happy to take my decision. I'll now take it. And I will hand over to Councillor Mahendran.
Thank you, Councillor Hanshaw. So I am taking a decision on our sustainability strategy. I'm really proud of the strategy that we're bringing tonight. Since the Council first declared a climate emergency in 2019, huge steps have been taken. We've reduced our energy consumption as a council by 80%. We've cut our carbon emissions by thousands of tonnes. We've moved forward leaps and bounds with recycling to be among the top in the country. And we've made energy efficiency improvements to hundreds of council homes and helped residents to make such changes to their own private homes. We've also showed leadership on ambitious citywide projects like advancing a heat network that will warm public buildings like our hospital and leisure centres. We've learned a lot in that time. While there have been individuals and groups that have been invested in sustainability and the environment throughout our history, the acute nature of the climate crisis and the need for substantial urgent action has only really been in the public consciousness in recent decades. Much of the world is trying to understand how we can reach our goals, and so climate action relies on the new and the innovative. There are things we've learned and things that we would have done differently, and one important thing is to note the recognition that we are only directly responsible for around 4% of the city's emissions. We can't control what other companies and organisations do. We can't control all of our public transport like buses, and we can't control the actions of individual members of the city. We've also seen the erosion of political consensus on the issue nationally and the local ramifications of that. And in the same period, we've seen the continued decline of public funding to councils combined with increased demand, which has even made day-to-day business of a council much harder. Despite all of this, we are still just as ambitious and just as conscious of our responsibility in showing leadership on the issue for the sake of the future of our planet, our city, and the individuals that live here, particularly the most vulnerable. It's them who will feel the impacts most acutely and in some instances in life-threatening ways. I took on this portfolio more than 2 years ago now, and this strategy has been a work in progress since that point. We've restructured the team within the council, we've spoken to partners across the city, we've spoken to other cities nationally and internationally, and this is the summation of a huge amount of work informed by this experience, expertise and passion, and a shared understanding of the urgency of the issue and the responsibility of the council to lead by example and influence others. I'd like to thank everyone who fed into the consultation, which included sessions with businesses, educational institutions, the building sector, health bodies, parish councils, and Milton Keynes Youth Council, among many others. And thank you to the officers who spent a great deal of time on this work. I know that we have some public speakers, and as Jo mentioned at the beginning, just for those who might not be aware, if you haven't come to a DD before, this is not a question and answer session with myself or officers, but rather it's a chance to speak on the decision tonight, as unlike most councils, we take delegated decisions in public and not behind closed doors. Before I pass over to our public speakers, do any officers have anything they wish to add? Nope. Okay. So our first public speaker is Judith Heineman. You have 3 minutes. Will I remind you when there are 30 seconds? Yes.
Thank you very much. I'll focus my comments on nature. It's very good news indeed that your sustainability strategy now recognises the role that nature plays in making our city more resilient to flooding, extreme heat, drought and soil erosion. It highlights the extensive evidence that access to green spaces leads to improved educational outcomes and well-being, and it includes the delivery of the Buckinghamshire and Milton Keynes Local Nature Recovery Strategy, the LNRS. On Saturday, for example, I was thrilled to see the new trees in central Milton Keynes and the shrub beds planted up by local businesses. However, I have grave concerns about the delivery of the strategy in relation to nature. Council leader Marlon stated publicly last week, it's very important that your contract management is strong. I've no doubt at all that the terrible destruction of our natural environment in Loughton this year, spring flowering trees cut down, hedges flattened, wildlife corridors completely removed, that all these actions fit nowhere into your strategy. Secondly, I've shared with you Plant Life's case study regarding the climate benefits of cut and collect twice a year, either side of summer, and then using the arisings to generate energy. This method increases carbon storage and biodiversity and reduces emissions and management costs significantly. Dorset County Council adopted this approach in 2014 and halved their landscape budget within 7 years. So this technology could offer significant budget savings, but it's not in the strategy. Moreover, Glendale's contract includes cut and collect, but I believe they don't have the machinery. At the recent launch of the LNRS, Estelle Morris, CEO of our local wildlife trust, stressed the vital role which partnerships play in the delivery of the LNRS. Your strategy also promises to engage with your partners to increase biomass, urban cooling and biodiversity. However, to date, I've seen no evidence at all in my biodiversity work of a strong partnership with the Parks Trust, which manages 6,000 acres of our green spaces and 80 miles of our verges.
30 seconds.
Can you confirm that your landscape contractor, Glendale, will support 100% the aims of this strategy so that nature's at the heart of their actions moving forward? You'll include cut and collect technology, which is key to improving biodiversity in our city, and that you're committed to strengthening your working relationship with the Parks Trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I'm not going to come back after each speaker. I'll address some of the points when I sum up at the end. Our next speaker is Martin Davies, please. And again, you have 3 minutes and you'll be reminded when you have 30 seconds left.
Hi, Milton Keynes Council Climate Action Network notes several areas of significant concern about these documents. The Environment and Place Scrutiny Committee considered the strategy at its meeting on the 27th of March last year and made several recommendations. Most notable, they asked for a comprehensive risk analysis framework in achieving net zero objectives, and this has not been included in the strategy. The strategy seems to finesse overall delivery risk by merely changing the words of the target from will aim to reach net zero to aspires to work towards achieving net zero by 2030. This is unacceptable language in a strategy which needs to address the climate emergency that the Council itself accepted in 2019, and one which has been only recently underlined in its severity by the National Security Assessment and the National Emergency Briefing on Climate and Nature. The Scrutiny Committee requested clearer demarcation between the Council's specific and broader citywide objectives, and the strategy does not provide detail on Council and citywide emission reduction pathways, though the 2030 net zero target is the same. This seems very unrealistic, particularly given the growth plans for the city. The MK City Plan 2050 does include greater sustainability policies, creditable sustainability policies, if they are implemented fully, but the sustainability assessment of the city plan concluded that planned future growth of Milton Keynes will significantly increase carbon emissions. Our committee held 6 meetings with its members last year as part of the consultation on these documents and made detailed representations to the Council on its concerns. Most of these comments have not yet been reflected in the strategy. The committee welcomes the intention to convene a city climate partnership by September 2026. This is critical, and the committee looks forward to being part of this partnership. The group could have a key function in drawing up a cross-city net zero roadmap with short, medium and long-term targets. All town and community councils should have an actionable plan to deliver carbon reductions and nature recovery. While any further delay in approving and implementing the strategy would be regrettable, the above-mentioned points are very significant, and there thus is a case for a short deferral of a decision to enable a review of the strategy and action plan by the Scrutiny Committee to consider these key emissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I've got Caroline Saunders, please.
Thank you very much. I'd like to talk about waste. The circular economy is increasingly recognised as a foundational element of any effective sustainability strategy, moving beyond mere waste management to fundamentally reorientate how resources are managed, products are designed and value is created, by shifting from a linear model to one that eliminates waste, circulates products and regenerates natural systems. This approach directly addresses the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution. I contend that the Sustainability Strategy and Action Plan documents have merit on waste management, but are deficient on this important topic. The district heat network programme that you've mentioned is very welcome, and it's an example of using waste heat to reduce emissions. The strategy also celebrates recent changes to waste collections in the city, which saw the biggest recycling of any authority in the country. This cooperation from residents is very encouraging, of course, but the strategy lacks content on a more holistic approach to creating a circular economy with active application of a full waste hierarchy. I've seen no mention of that term of reduce, reuse, recycle. The action plan talks vaguely of working with the third sector on things like repair cafes and reuse centres and encouraging business participation in any city climate contract that will be developed. A new MKCC waste strategy was due in November 25, but has not appeared. The approach to waste is inadequate. Waste reduction initiatives have a good return on investment and can deliver significant financial benefits to consumers. Could the action plan be more specific on initiatives to encourage a genuine circular economy with waste reduction and particularly reuse? Has MKCC considered a local industrial symbiosis scheme where surplus and waste is brokered between companies? One company's waste could be another company's input. The UK has been a pioneer of this with its National Industrial Symbiosis Programme. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Jane Wild. Did Jane get here?
Councillor, she's not here yet, but she can maybe take Ellen and see if she's here in the next 3 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Alan, online, please.
Hi, thank you very much. Alan Francis, Milton Keynes Green Party. Given the scale and importance of climate change, this strategy is not sufficiently radical or urgent. It appears to be watered down from previous version in 2020. There's been good progress on Milton Keynes City Council activities, only 4% CO2 emissions, but very little has been achieved with regard to the rest of the city. There don't seem to be any targets other than for 2030, so it's impossible to assess progress. MKCC claims it wants to be a world leader in sustainability, but according to a site scorecards, it's only middle ranking. It actually to become world leader in sustainability, and we think it should be, then more ambitious policies are required. Some of the policies from the 2020 sustainability strategy appear to have been weakened, given that the 2030 target year for climate neutrality need to be strengthened, not weakened. There's too much emphasis in the council policies on growth at the expense of sustainability. Sustainability should take priority over growth, not the other way around. Climate change is happening now. Even if the policies in the strategy and action plan achieving a goal that we think is unlikely, the city and its residents will have to deal with the impact of the climate change, which is already in the system. This may take the form of floods, heat waves, fires, food shortages, infrastructure failure, homes becoming uninhabitable, etc. The CO2 that is emitted, the worse these consequences will be. These impacts will adversely affect the people and the economy of Milton Keynes. The sustainability strategy must address the issue of adaptation, how MK and its residents will adapt to the climate change impacts that are inevitable, whatever the outcome of the strategy. And we don't think it has enough to say about that. Energy, we welcome the City Council's ambition to reach the net zero by 2030 and recognise the progress that's been made. But to show true leadership, the council must go further, faster, and move beyond incremental steps in energy reduction and management. The current energy section is too vague, lacks quantified target, and risks overstating the progress. Most emissions come from the transport sector. More information on transport policy is expected in the draft Local Transport Plan 5, but we've yet to see the full text of that. The first Local Transport Plan in 2000, the document basically is that 77% travel was by car. A quarter of a century later, travel by car is still 77%, and public transport use 100%. So it's apparent that the measures taken in the last 5 years achieve modal shift away from cars, and more effective measures are required.
You've reached your time. Thank you. Jane,
I'm finished. Thanks.
Jane isn't here, so I think we will continue. Yeah. If someone has Jane's comments, I'm happy for them to be read, because I know she had unavoidable reasons to not be here.
So on behalf of Jane Wild, I welcome the sustainability strategy before you this evening. I have questions about the prospect of Newtown funding. Whilst expansion is a major economic opportunity for homes, jobs and investment, the scale of growth raises a fundamental challenge for the sustainability strategy and the action plan and beyond to 2050. I'm a climate activist who has shed tears together with local politicians and the public alike while contemplating the climate emergency we face. A new town inevitably means more construction, more transport demand and higher energy use. Even with exemplary standards and new mass rapid transport infrastructure, absolute emissions are likely to rise and demand for resources such as food and water will increase due to expansion. That creates a real risk that sustainability targets for the council and the city set today based on today's size and assumptions become obsolete as growth accelerates. So an issue is not whether growth and sustainability can coexist in theory, but how the council intends to keep the city's sustainability aspirations credible and meaningful in practice as the city expands. Recent thinking on new towns, including the paper From Talk to Town, Co-Creating the Future of New Towns Through Engagement, is clear on one critical point. Engagement cannot be an afterthought or procedural exercise. It must come first. Engagement is not just about building consent. It is how better decisions are made, risks are reduced, and long-term stewardship is secured. That matters directly for sustainability targets, pathways and trade-offs will only remain robust if they are shaped with communities, businesses and residents, not just consulted once plans are fixed. Engagement-first approaches allow assumptions to be challenged early, phasing to be tested, and unintended consequences such as the impact of light pollution on wildlife or further loss of wildlife corridors to be identified before they are locked in. So she would like to ask three things. First, how will the sustainability strategy adapt if Newtown proposals materially change the city's emissions baseline? Will net zero targets be transparently rebased or rescheduled? Second, how will engagement be embedded at the front end of decision making about expansion before targets are finalised, sites fixed and phasing agreed, rather than used to explain decisions already taken? And third, what governance triggers will require the sustainability action plan to be reviewed if new town plans progress so sustainability remains a binding framework? A new town is an opportunity, but it is also a stress test. An engagement-first approach offers a way to ensure that economic success does not undermine climate credibility and community action, and that Milton Keynes grows not just bigger, but truly sustainably.
Thank you. So as Councillor Earnshaw mentioned, and as I mentioned, it's not sort of a question and answer, but I will try and touch on some of the points that are mentioned as I sum up. So again, as I said, I'm very proud of the strategy we're bringing. It's been a long time in the making, and I will not be deferring the decision to take the strategy. Partly, as I mentioned, this has been 2 years in the making, and given the sort of scale of the climate crisis, I don't think there is a reason to delay. Additionally, because I'm very proud of the strategy and I think it's a very good strategy. To touch on some of the points around sort of risk analysis and KPIs, etc., that the sort of measures and scrutiny are going to be determined by scrutiny management, who will be looking at those specific figures. This is sort of a strategic overview rather than the sort of nitty-gritty of those aspects. So they will come following this. The strategy as a whole, I don't believe went to scrutiny. It was sort of the council part that went to scrutiny. So in terms of their comments around clarity on city versus council, that's been addressed in the fact that there are two separate streams within the strategy. To touch on this sort of slight change in language around the city-wide ambition, as I said in my opening remarks, I think if we went back, we would have done different things now, and hindsight teaches you things, and we've learned over that time. We do only have control over 4% of emissions in the city, and we can't dictate to anyone what they should do. there's a significant amount in this strategy around engagement and working with partners around the city so that we can try and bring people on that journey together. And I think there's a huge expansion of that work in this compared to the original strategy. And that's how we're able to move towards a net zero city, rather than sort of setting ourselves a target that is not really ours to set. We can't set what the city will be, but we can set an ambition as sort of a leading body in the city. With regards to our contractors, all of our contractors work in line with our strategies as a council. And so, as Councillor Marland mentioned, you know, it's our job to try and ensure that they are sticking to that and that we have good contract management. In return, oh, hi, Jane. We've read out your comments. I can't remember if I responded to them yet. I'll keep going. In terms of the comments around waste, I am incredibly proud of the work that we do around waste that Nick and his team lead on. We've got some really exciting and ambitious plans around how we use the energy that's produced from waste, and I think we're one of 4 councils in the country that use this gasification method. That means that we are not creating as many emissions from our waste and have a far more sustainable waste system than most. I think 8 years ago, before I became a councillor, I never thought I'd get so excited about waste, but we do have a really exciting system in Milton Keynes, and there are some really exciting plans moving forward. Included in that are plans where we are moving towards having 2 larger sites for waste, and one of those will include a reuse centre to involve some of that circular economy work that was mentioned. But again, I am not the cabinet member responsible for waste, so I think that's the limit of the response I can give on that. Although I do think the symbiosis scheme mentioned sounds quite interesting, so I think we'd be speaking for the cabinet member who held this portfolio before I did, so has a really strong interest in sustainability. I think that's something we'd be interested in looking at. New towns, unfortunately, well, the new towns are a government scheme rather than being led by the council. So we have adopted a motion as a council that we are supporting the new town scheme and that we'll work proactively with them. But in terms of the specifics of how that programme will play out, that's not in our control. We can try and influence, but it's not specifically within our control. But in terms of when the strategy will be reviewed, I believe it will be reviewed next in 2028. So depending on how far we are down the line, because at the minute we are just a recommended new town, we aren't there aren't any concrete plans of what will happen that can tie into that review in 2028. And then lastly, to touch on some of the points around growth and sustainability, particularly around prioritising sustainability over growth. I don't think they're sort of mutually exclusive, that you need to promote one over the other. I have a particular interest in that, having done my master's in sustainable cities. I think how we work to make urban environments sustainable whilst they grow for growing populations is the challenge of our time. And sort of, I think it's quite a regressive view to pit them against each other and pick one over the other, particularly as, you know, I wholeheartedly believe that the climate crisis is one of the biggest issues facing us. But we've also got almost 1,000 families living in temporary accommodation in our city, and to put a hold on building new homes. And we've seen that our work on growth over the past, I think, 10 years has meant that a large proportion of families who were in the most deprived postcodes in the country are no longer in that category, and we're one of only 11 places where that has happened. So tackling the climate crisis is fundamentally one of my principles as a socialist because it is the most vulnerable people who will be affected the most by the impacts of climate change. And similarly, in my principles as a socialist, people should have homes to live in, and we shouldn't have children who are growing up in temporary accommodation and who can't do their homework because they can't concentrate because they're in a hotel room. Those are both incredibly important things, and I don't think it's helpful or necessary to pit them against each other. Much of our sustainability work also comes from growth, the funding that we get from growth. So we've been able to use that to retrofit buildings across the city, and it is what is hopefully going to fund our mass rapid transit system, which will revolutionise public transport in the city and bring our emissions down in the transport sector quite significantly. So I think I've spoken for long enough addressing all of those points, so I don't have much more to add other than to sort of reiterate that I will be taking the decision tonight enthusiastically. And also just thank the officers again, Nick Cannon, Alex Bogdanov, Sophie Lloyd, and also Gemma Drake, who is not here this evening, but has done a very significant amount of work on this. And with that, I will take the decision. Thank you. I need to close the meeting. We'll close the meeting at 6:33. Thank you.